And we are recording. If you want to know the secret to mastering and how to make your mixes sound good, it's that fucking lamp up there. You gotta have that fucking lamp. Anyway, family show time. So, get my mic here. I have the camera over there for visibility. I'm going to be going over Ozone 5 for no apparent reason. So when you open it, you have this basic preset manager thing. You're going to close that, and we're just going to start just boom, 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 and we're going to go through it all. Actually, oops, not what I want to do. Actually, that was what I want to do. So I'm going to get rid of the show extra curves for the sake of, for the sake of ease. So this is all my master, and I have the L2 right after, so it's whatever. So I have my equalizer here, and what this is it's a spectrum and an equalizer. So this right here is more precise and more balanced than any room you'll ever be in. Theoretically, you could make awesome mixes just with your metering, because this has peak and RMS and different. You can take pictures of tracks, their spectrum, and then you can import them in and you can match it. But I'm not going to do that in this video. I'll probably do it in another one. You're going to have to remind me, because YouTube are Nazis when it comes to using music. And I don't want this to be banned in Germany because I like Germany. Germany has been really good to me. So what do you do? We have our basic, I'm going to turn this down just a little bit, basic techno minimal track. And here we go. So we have, our dancing spectrum. And right now, you look at it and you're just like, well, I don't really know what to do. So we have our average time of 1 second, and our peak hold time of 1 second. I think 1,000 milliseconds is a second. So we'll go, and then now. You see that the kick and the bass, they have their own little special thing. I'm actually going to make this time longer. There we go. We can even go infinite, but that doesn't really help us. Average time, there you go. Yeah. Okay, so it basically levels itself out, and that is that curve you see is typically every dance track of the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. The low end is rolled off. Here, I'll just turn this down. The low end is rolled off at around, I don't know, this would be, 30 hertz. So you can see, what am I pointing? You can see 30 hertz up here. So 30 hertz, and then everything down there is basically your earthquake frequencies. That's a very, very low kind of low end frequency that you can't really hear, you can only feel. And then once you get up here, this is your sub, right? Prosumer at 47 hertz, that's when the prosumer KRKs and whatnot kind of come in. Everything below 47 on these KRKs are rolled off. That's why I always look at that and I just see where I am. And I believe the response of my Fostex up here, for when I don't want to wake up the neighbors, or if I would just want to mix quietly or just play games or whatnot, is around 70 to 60, remarkably. And then, your laptop speakers with frequency response would be between 44 hertz and 20 kilohertz. Everything basically goes up to 20 kilohertz, but you don't hear these super high frequencies, and what they do is they cause like some sort of aliasing, and it's kind of undesirable. So you kind of roll them off as you go, um, and you can do it kind of that way. But oops, there you go. So yeah, the low end is kind of what you worry about. So what I want to do is I'll bring this back up, and what I'll do is you have your EQ bands. You have 1 through 8, and you can select them, and you can just delete them, so you only have 2, or you can use all of them if you want. But typically, you look at one, you pull it around, you say, oh, this is what it does. Oh, this is a shelf, and I can adjust it like that. That's a nice kind of rolly offy thing. You know, it's more of an analogish type thing. You know what I mean? High shelf is obviously a little bit different. It's on the other side. It's inverted. Vintage. It has when you lower the frequencies, the normal thing that happens automatically is it rises at the cue point. So this is basically that. So you have your resonant one. This is kind of like a filter. This would add, some low end growl or like high end kind of shimmer, and it's more of like an analog. It's more pleasing to the ear. But typically, what I do is I just brick wall at around 30 hertz, and that way everything kind of, it's not cut off completely. You'll hear it. Oh, you'll see it now. We're not even gonna listen to the track. We're just gonna look at the metering right now. That's all you should be focusing on. See, it rolls it off, right? But it doesn't do like a complete cut. It's not a complete cut, but it does in fact roll it off in a I think it's so you don't get the aliasing, and you don't get like audio problems. If you do like, if it was like an actual like precise cut, you get like crackles and like weird stuff going on. It's just how audio works. So yeah, I just cut it off around 30 hertz. Oops, why is it doing that? Wow. Okay, so you can just do that, and you just type in 30, and you watch me type it in. That's pretty cool. So you have that, and generally that kind of frees up that low end. It frees up a lot of headroom because modern dance music and techno music, the low end is the most prominent part, and then it goes down, kind of thing. So, so basically, you have that, and it should always be a slope, and you'll see our guides, right? It kind of follows the guide, and it just goes down. And big noise too. When you take pictures or you capture all your favorite tracks, you'll notice that it has the same curve in the spectrum, and that's done with matching. But matching, it doesn't really sound natural to me, which is weird, because I've never heard of like one person that used it on a track, to be honest. But it's there, and you can listen to it. So what we have now is we have some high frequency content that's kind of poking through. You listen to it now. So there's high content. It doesn't really need to be there, so we can just kind of smooth it out. Or if we want to get really crazy, we'll leave that. We'll select a bell, give it a nice curvy curve, and then just carve that out, right? So now, oops. So now that part's kind of tamed, and it still sounds more balanced and natural. So now I typically um, brick wall low pass the top, and what that does is it just kind of cleans up the top end. Like typically, you ever been at a club and like the whatever drop is happening, and you hear that psst, and like your ears start like hurting? That's that high frequency content that make a dog go insane. Uh, yeah, and that's basically what you would do for your equalizer, just to get it ready to be shoved through the factory. And what's next is your reverb. And typically, I used to use it quite a bit, but I haven't now. It's a matter of preference. You don't want to like reverb everything, but what you can do is you can just to add like what they call a shimmer. Uh, you can solo the wet, like the wet signal, and you can just kind of have it so you can barely hear it, and then right, and apparently that adds something that is more pleasing to the ear. But generally these days I have it off. You can use it, you don't have to use it, but mastering with reverb is kind of like a weird topic, and doesn't quite sit well with me. Which brings me to my next favorite American pastime, excitation. So basically, if you have an electric guitar and you want to make it sound cool, you plug a pedal in it before you go to the amplifier, and this is basically what it does. But it does it in multiple bands, and these bands can be very useful for you if you're having problems with select frequencies. So basically, you can solo the part on the spectrum that we saw on the equalizer. So you can solo that, and now you'll just hear nothing but the low end. Right? And, which is cool for the low end, but say if you have like the main heart of the track, which is about here, between whatever and whatever, you can hear that everything has a place, and you can select these two, or you can like move these around, like move them around, but it's whatever. So you can take out focusing on the bass and taking out the high end, and just have the mid, and you can be like, yeah, that kick is coming through, but I can make it, I can cut it back a little bit, or I can bring it up, and it's very, very useful. But what we're getting at is the excitation, or harmonic exciter, adding harmonics, which are like these high-end ripply things caused by like a fuzz box is an extreme example. But say if you have like uh, a tape, this is modeled after tape, I believe. Yeah, even harmonics only, transistor like harmonics, and these are just run through retro stuff. It's all the science I'm trying to get into, but I don't have very much outboard gear except there. But uh, yeah, this would be tape, and then tube. People like the tube, and we'll listen to what the tube sounds like, and we'll just have it maybe on the high end, because on the low end it kind of dirties it up a little too much. But if you're going for that, that's fine, and we'll just kind of bring it up. There's that, and then there's the triode, and then there's the dual triode, which also sounds okay. So either the tube or the dual triode, and that sounds pretty good once you add a post processor. This adds some high end, and you'll hear it, and it's not quite desirable. But yeah, you can use it. You don't have to use it, but it's there. And sometimes it works, sometimes it does not. Typically, I wouldn't use this kind of thing. I'd use it very, very sparingly, like very, very sparingly. but I would use kind of like tube distortion on just singular channels and not like full-on mixes. Full-on mixes, I guess you can get away with it for like certain rock or whatnot, but for dance, if you want to keep the pristine-ish, it doesn't quite work. Hold on, drink time. Okay, Dynamics. Dynamics is basically compressor, but on separate bands. It's the same as the last one. And what you can do, let me set up first. What you can do is you can kind of clean up the low end, make the low end sound like one sound. And you can get away with it. You can squish it and then bring it back up at your maximizer or your limiter or whatever. So basically, what I always do is clean up the low end, and you'll hear it now. Listen to this. And that's all I do. Basically, taking out the boom boom, that part, and the kick, and what it does is it just kind of tightens it up. And I'm not going to use like a word I just made up. It really tightens it up, the low end. And you hear what the low end and the mid range, mid low, and the heart of the track kind of sounds like right now. So those tom hits are kind of peaking up and down, and they're very, very dynamic. A little too dynamic for me right now. And you can barely hear it. But it already has a noticeable effect that sounds pretty good, like so. And that can be done with the high end too, because the high end has a lot of problems with flam and like wishy-washy issues. You don't want to reduce it too much. You want to barely notice it auditorily, and see what the production is. And what that does is that'll clean up the multiband dynamics, the multiband compressor. In this, it basically, can't say this enough, cleans everything up, glues everything together, without affecting other bands and other groups of instruments that are in your mix. And it can do what bussing and grouping can't do, in my opinion, because you want your mix to sound like one whole track. Which brings me to my favorite, which is stereo imaging. Typically, what I'll do is I'll look at the image of the track and what kind of track it is. So I'll play that now. Oh, I actually might want to play the whole track, not the band. So you have some phasing there. It's not mission critical. You're not mastering the vinyl, and it's not canceling it out per se. But we'll listen to all the bands to see what's going on. Typically, listen to this. You want the low end to have, in my opinion, a center, full center, all the side content taken out, and then as well with this, I typically narrow this slightly, and then I can compensate by bringing the width and the high end out. The high end, you can get away with a lot of width, and the width, makes it sound good. there's another thing you can do. You can offset. So these three will play at on the allotted speed, and then the top band will be offset by 3.8 milliseconds, and that causes, phase. It's a drum mixing technique and a vocal technique as well, to add kind of like a natural chorus, but without kind of phasing. But it is phasing, but it's okay. So we have that. Now, now we have our post EQ, which happens after everything except the maximizer. And what this does, it's just another way. So you can have the EQ. This is what they added in 5. You have the EQ before, which does your surgical kind of reparative, and then you're affecting everything else after. And then the post EQ is for after all the processing. So it's the post processing equalizer. And you can never have too many equalizers. So I don't think we need to take out the low end, because we've done enough to it. But the high end, I'm going to low pass, brick wall. And this kind of does what the MP3 encoder does, takes out that high end. And I just want to make sure there's no errors and there's plenty of headroom. So, and that's basically all that I use this for. Sometimes I'll roll off slightly this, just to make doubly sure, and just kind of have like a smooth curve as opposed to the harsh one I made after the processing. And it's always a good idea. It's available, use it. So the maximizer is way different than the last one. I typically do not like it. I like the old one, or I'll use the L2, which is fun. I move that back soon. So I'll just use the L2, and that way saves a lot of headaches. This brutalizes my CPU, but we'll just listen to it anyway and see what it does. So I'm gonna have to do this at a later date, but you can see the reduction there. It has 3 modes. This is typically you'd set the threshold with this one, and then this one you'd render with. It uses a lot of CPU, or you could hard clip, or have a insane attack time, or a soft attack time. You don't need to worry about dithering, because you're starting up in 16, and in dithering is a myth, and I don't like it. Also, you just move the threshold. In the margin, you can have it so it doesn't go above 0.1 decibels, and that just gives you a bit of a safety net. Like that'd be extreme, but you can use what you want. But typically, after this stage, I would move in the L2. And yeah, that's my overview of Ozone 5. And that's it. Take care.